What up, YouTube? So it's been a while since I've done a video, and it's just been busy. Thanksgiving, we went to Disneyland, and just been a crazy month. So I apologize for that. So as we're getting into this season where we are running into colder temperatures, fuel stations are switching over from summer to winter blend, and we're seeing our fuel mileage possibly plummet. There's some things that I'd like to talk about when it comes to additives. Now, I'm not going to recommend a specific additive as far as like a specific company. I use, just to throw it out there, Hot Shot. I have used some other additives that worked fine. I just have found, out of all the ones that I've tried, that Hot Shot kind of is the most noticeable difference in my truck. So that's the reason I go with it. So there's basically 3 or 4 main types of additives that you're going to have. Your first one is going to be your cetane additive, which is just going to boost your cetane in your diesel fuel, because fuel stations can vary, and so the cetane additive kind of helps to somewhat bring that into alignment with other fuel stations. And usually a cetane additive is going to have other, beneficial properties. It's going to be a cleaner and stuff like that. Then your next one is a lubricity additive. That would be like your Lucas fuel stabilizer. That one's more of a lubricity additive. It does have cleaning properties like many of your cetane additives do, but it doesn't have any cetane value in it. It's just a lubricity additive that helps your injectors out, and as well as kind of moderate your fuel so that you're not getting a bunch of water and that sort of thing. Then your next additive is kind of going to be your dual additive, which is going to have cetane and lubricity in it. This is the more common one, I would say, that is out there. Most of your cetane additives are gonna have some sort of lubricity additive as well. Most of your lubricity additives are going to have a cetane additive. Like I said, Lucas Oil, their fuel stabilizer doesn't have a cetane additive, at least not that I've seen. I used Lucas Oil fuel stabilizer forever. My dad still does. And then beyond those, kind of 3, then you have your anti-gelling or your winter blend. And your winter blend can have lubricity and cetane, as well as an anti-gelling property in there, or it can be just an anti-gelling winter blend. So what I suggest, as you're going through, there are a lot of good additives out there. A lot of people back and forth on whether it's snake oil or whether they're actually do some good. For me, where I'm at, the fuel isn't regulated very well, and you can run, it's a B5 in most fuel stations, and B20 in the other fuel stations, and so it may or may not have a decent cetane level. So with B20, you are going to run, it's less efficient, but it has got a good lubrication in it, and it's got a good cleaning property. A lot of people will shy away from the B20 because they feel that it'll gel up their systems or mess up their injectors and stuff like that. What I found is, as long as you're running a lift pump with filters and you're keeping your regular filters checked and cleaned, running B20 isn't going to be a problem at all. What actually happens is that to make B20 more burnable or more like diesel, there's more cleaners or more solvents in it, and so it tends to clean out your tank and your fuel lines. The other thing that you can run into, I haven't seen it so far, is that a lot of trucks prior to, I would say, 2010 or 2009, somewhere in there, the fuel lines were not designed to handle that type of solvent, and so it can deteriorate your fuel lines. So I've heard. I haven't seen that, but that's something that I have read. So I would say personally, as long as you're running a good setup on your truck, as far as making sure that your filters are changed and that you're doing good, don't be afraid to run B20. It makes my truck quieter. Like I said, it adds more of a lubricant to your injectors. And so what I do when I run a B20, which is most of the time, I'll go through and hit up a fuel station with B5 every couple, 3-4 tanks or so. But the B20, I will throw my hotshot everyday diesel in there, and that's got a cetane additive as well as a lubricity additive, but more so for me it's the cetane, because like I said, B20 can be less efficient, so you won't get as good a fuel mileage, and you'll notice a slight power decrease. So by adding that cetane additive, you'll gain that back. And I honestly, when I add that, I can't tell the difference in fuel mileage over B5. So they say it's about a 1-ish% difference between standard diesel and B20. So keep that in mind. Now, if you're running B5 or regular diesel, I would say not to worry so much about the cetane additive, as much as just making sure you're running a good lubricity additive, especially in trucks that are older than 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, because they were set up for low sulfur diesel, and now we're running ultra low sulfur diesel. So you want to make sure that you're adding some lubricity to that. It's going to help your injectors. It's going to help the life of your CP3. It's just going to help out all the way through. That's kind of the reason why I run the B20, because I know that there's more lubricant in there to make up for that low sulfur count, because the sulfur is what added lubrication to diesel. And then you run your winter blends. Where I'm at, Oregon does not ever get cold enough to have to run a winter blend. If we get in the teens for maybe a week straight, that's crazy. I can't ever remember a time where it's gotten below that. Most of the time we're above 35 or so, in the 40s. So I don't worry about a anti-gelling in my truck. But you guys out there in the very cold Midwest, that may be something that you guys have to look into. And again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not pushing any specific. Like I said, I've had good luck with hot shots. I run it. I've been running it now for about 5 months, and I like it. I do notice a difference without it when I don't use it. So that's why I've stuck with hot shots. But there's Stanodyne. There is what is that, PS, I mean, there's just Lucas, there's a bunch of them out there. And I would say stick with the name brands, because some of the other stuff, you just don't know what's necessarily in them, and it could just be total snake oil. Unless you have a good diesel shop that you trust and you know, and you use their product and you like it. But other than that, I would stay with the bigger name. Stanadyne, Power Service is the one I was trying to think of. Lucas, Hot Shots. I'm sure I'm missing some out there, but you know, basically, if you put in diesel additive, they're the first ones that pop up on Amazon. So I would stick with those, and find one that you can get locally, or that you can, you know, buy in bulk. I buy my Hot Shots 2 or 3 at a time, and that way I don't have to worry about it. And I mean, I've got 3, maybe even 4 in my cabinet now. You know, it just looks like this, and it's just called Everyday Diesel Treatment, EDT. And you just pour. It has a little measuring. Most of them will have a little measure cup here on the or you just fill that up, and then you pour that into your tank, and then you add your diesel. So you want to do that prior to filling your tank. You want to put the I'm just making sure I get it in there. You want to put your diesel treatment in there before you fill up. That way, as it's filling up, it's sloshing around and it's mixing better. But other than that, guys, that's all I had for you. If you have any questions, it's so hard to find good information about you know, additives and what diesels you should run and which diesels you shouldn't, or which diesel you shouldn't, and I mean, you're gonna get conflicting information. From my research, B20 is completely fine. Just keep extra filters on hand, so that if as it does clean up your fuel system, that you are able to change out your filter. So just make sure I keep an extra filter for my AirDog and an extra filter for my primary filter under the hood. And that way, if I notice any difference in my fuel pressure gauge, which I have right you know, in my dash here, as soon as it, you know, starts to fall 5 or 6 when I'm on the throttle, then I know that my filters are starting to get clogged up. And that's another thing I would do. For me, I put it right after my AirDog, so that I can see as soon as I start my truck if I'm getting pressure in the lines. I run about 8 pounds of pressure. Then when I get on the throttle, it'll come down to 7. And like I said, if it gets down into 6 or even 5, then I know that there's an issue, and it's usually been my fuel filter is filling up. So anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Make sure you do your research, especially in the cold areas. I'm not really familiar with what to run or what's best or how often or what you're going to run into. So definitely you know, pay attention and research for your own region, I would say. Like I said, what I've done so far, I feel is best for my area and how I drive my truck and whatnot. So anyway, guys, have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.